Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, well, she'll get that fixed in a minute. But I want to tell you something about what happened the other day on the road. A younger man, probably in his 40s, was very successful and decided to fulfill one of his lifelong dreams, and that is go and buy a Ferrari. He went into the Ferrari shop and bought this brand new $500,000 Ferrari. And so he pulled it out of the lot and went to a stop sign or stoplight, and then a second later, the light was red, he stopped, and a second later, this older gentleman, probably in his 80s,
Your glasses are pounding on your
came up and in a moped, in a yellow moped. And he was looking, the older man was looking at that Ferrari and just really enjoying it. The guy was just kind of just glowing in the idea that somebody was looking at this car. And the old man said, "Whoa-wee, that really looks nice. How fast does it go?" And the man said, "Well, I just got it, spent $500,000 on it, and it can go super duper fast." And he said, "I bet it can," as he pulled his suspenders down and was looking inside of it and thought, "Wow, this is really nice." And he says, "That's probably too much car for me, though. I think I'll just stay with my moped." And so, being really happy about his new car, when the light turned green, he just floored it and went about 200 miles an hour down the road. And pretty soon he looked in his rear mirror and he saw something yellow in the back coming toward him, kind of gaining on him. And he thought, "What the heck?" And then he thought, "That's that moped catching up with me." So he put some more gas into it and got up to 250, and he's just kind of smiling, enjoying the ride. And pretty soon he saw that moped coming up against him again. And so he said, "That's it, I'm flooring it." He floored it all the way. He got up to 300 miles an hour. And pretty soon he looked in the mirror, and that darn moped is going to come up there. And whoosh, it ended up passing him a little bit. And so he ended up going past the moped and stopping. And here in a second, the moped slammed him in the back and kind of dinged up his Ferrari. And he got out and he just couldn't believe it. And the old man was still alive. And he thought, "Well, what's going on? How did you do that?" The old man said, "Well, I sure would appreciate it if you take my suspender off your rearview mirror."
Oh my goodness.
I bet you didn't see it coming at least. Oh well. Anyway, I wasn't even going to do a joke today, but I decided to because I like that one. This is what I was going to do, and this is actually the joke picture, but I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is our feelings, mainly right now about the election or whatever, but this is what I wanted to talk to you about. This old man was invited to actually the priest went to the old man's house to eat breakfast with his family, and the wife was having biscuit and gravy, and the old man, the priest said, "Well, will you please bless the food for us?" And the old man said, "Okay." And the old man started by saying, "Dear God, I sure don't like lard. It tastes terrible by itself." And so then he said, "God, I sure don't like flour. It is terrible. It just tastes terrible." And he said, "God, I sure don't like taking care of those pigs. I sure don't." And then he said, and the priest kept looking at him, opening his eye, looking at him, trying to figure out where he's going with this. And the old man finally said, "God, but when they're all mixed together, they sure do make a great meal." And so I thought that was so prophetic to think about what happens in our lives as far as what we choose to focus on. And it is really up to us, isn't it, what we choose to focus on? Whether we're happy or sad is up to us. And however we're feeling is up to us. Now, sometimes we need to go through feelings, and that's okay, and that's not a problem. I'm not saying ignore your feelings at all. Don't misunderstand that at all. Because, during this week, I've seen a lot of people that I respect kind of act silly in my mind. Whatever side you're on, whatever situation, you need to focus on what is going on, and why do I feel this way about whatever we're talking about. And the questions really come down to this, is can we love? Can we love our friends? I think that's pretty easy to do when we're friends. When we're having arguments, it's not, though, is it? Can we love our family? Most of the time, except during Thanksgiving, right? Most of the time, though, we can love our family. Can we love our home? We all enjoy our home. We all, the same with nature, we all enjoy that usually. But when we wanted to go out and have a baseball game or something that's raining out there today, we might not enjoy it or love it as much. But we still can love it. The rain has to come to create those days, doesn't it? Can we love each other? And that's the main point. Can we love each other? After an election or after anything, can we love each other? That's the question.
Yes.
And we have to ask ourselves that if we can. Because sometimes we come up with an answer that we don't like, that we can't. But we can if we think about it. You know, it's interesting how you see things that happen in life if you're paying attention. And it's just all serendipitous to me. Because I saw something the other day that kind of lit up a light in me. And it said, you know, when we have opinions about something, we think that we're right, we think that we're in the middle, right? But if you move to the right or to the left one way, you still think you're right and you think you're in the middle, don't you? But you're not necessarily, and that's okay. I want to know the last time, I know that nobody in here has had an argument with anybody, but when you did, when you observed somebody else having an argument, do you think that that the person having the argument, no matter which side you decide to agree with, do you think that they thought that they were wrong? Of course they didn't think that they were wrong. And there doesn't have to be a wrong and right is the point. If we love each other, you know, this is where our relationships go sour sometimes. If we love each other more than being right on a subject, then the love will continue. If we don't, though, if we have to be proven right, if we have to be the right ones, if we have to win in everything that we do, then it's not going to be too much fun for us. I'll tell you that right now. Because you're going to have to either be away from everybody or you're going to have to surround yourself with people that are just so like-minded as you that you're just going to be in one area. I was talking to a person the other day that had moved from New York. I think she lived in New York. That's what she said. She lived in New York. And we were talking, and I said, you know, I think about it, and Francie and I talk about it every once in a while, the importance of how to raise children. Of course, we have some, so that's why we talk about it. But, you know, how to raise children. You know, I was blessed. I look at it as a blessing, but sometimes I look at it not as a blessing. Probably at the time I didn't look at it as a blessing. But we moved around enough to know different type of cultures and different types of people and where they were coming from anyway is what the point is. But some of, you know, as a child, some of the schools I went to, I wish I was back in the other school. You know, because the other school, like, you know, I was raised mostly in Texas, and Texas was a great place. I enjoyed it very much, and I felt that the schools there were great, and I was learning well, good, and you know, it's always best to be king, isn't it? And so when you're on top somewhere, whether you're on top, you know, according to other people, it doesn't make a difference. But you feel on top and you feel good, then it's a lot easier to get to be in that place than it is when you're not familiar with anybody or how they think. But when we moved to Kansas for a little bit, which was a brief while at that point, it was different. There were different people. They thought different. They looked different. You know, and this comes down to also even looking as far as our races. You know, in Texas, where I was raised at least, you know, you had mainly whites and Hispanics. And, you know, I was raised in that, so that was normal, right? Well, when I moved to Kansas, there was also blacks, not as much Hispanics and whites. And so, you know, it's a different, it not only looked different, but it was different. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it was different. It wasn't what I was used to. And thus the point I'm making as far as moving around it, learning different cultures and different ideas of things. It actually, as long as you're not hardened to your own way of being, or you're not forced, and you can't be forced, but if you're not strongly taught by your parents or your caregivers that it's supposed to be only this way, and you can think freely, then I think you can get a better idea of where people are coming from. And not be so offended by if they think different than you. Because I can tell you right now, a lot of people think different than me. A lot of people, uni ministers think different than I do. And that's just the way it is. You know, it's not that I have to agree with them or they have to agree with me. But I would like to be able to have a civil conversation with everybody. You know, and be able to share where we're coming from, because that's the way we're going to get to a point where we can understand that we are all God's children. Because what does God do in all situations? All situations. When you're thinking about, well, God, I want peace. What is God going to do? Is He going to grant you peace right then? He, she, the Spirit, is it going to grant you peace right then? I'm sorry, no. God's going to give you the opportunity to find peace in your life. If you want, and you know, it's a hard lesson for some people to learn. But if you want financial wellness in your life, or whatever it is that you want in life, God is not going to send a bolt of lightning to you and thunder and say, here, you got it. I love you so much. No, He's going to say, he or she's going to say, I love you so much, I'm going to give you the opportunity to learn how to do what you need to do to get in the position you want to get into. And then you can stay there as long as you want. Or not. The or not is the hard part sometimes. Because being created from the Creator gives us the ability to do anything. But that can work both ways. And if we have the ability to do it, then why can't we have the ability? We do have the ability, but why can't we look at love first? Why can't we love each other first? That's what God does for us. That's the situation that we're in. We're given love, and that's unequivocally, under no circumstances does God not give you love. Spirit is always love for you. Yet, if we do not accept it, if we don't see that in others, then we won't be able to fully enjoy it in our life. Jesus keenly knew, this is from Charles Fillmore, Revealing Word, Jesus keenly knew the consciousness of the character of God and His own relationship to Him. So Jesus knew about this relationship that He and God had. He knew God as unlimited love and as an ever-present, abundant life. And you know, sometimes when we think about that, and I hope that nobody takes offense to any of this stuff I'm saying today, but I did think, that's why I titled it The Elephant in the Room. I do think that we can get along without having to be winners or right. And if we are winners in this situation, we won't be all the time. So it's not anything that we need to be concerned about. I know that there's so many more important things in life than what we put a lot of weight on. You know, our finances, an election, a lot of things that are so much more important. You know, if we have an issue that we have that has come to our heart to deal with, then deal with it. Don't expect somebody else to deal with it. We can't expect other people. You know, it always amazed me, and I'm not getting on to anybody, but I am in a way a little bit, but it always amazed me when Francie and I were foster parents, how many people would judge us, because we would take all types of children, and you learn both ways, how many other people would judge you, and then how you would find yourself judging also. And so what I mean by this is that, you know, a lot of people would criticize, you know, the system as far as, well, we spend so much money on this as far as the government, spend so much money in taxes on trying to help children, and we still have this system problem. Well, instead of complaining, let's find a solution. I always had the thought that, you know, and I think a lot of people have come around to that, is if you find something that you don't like and you find that it's a problem and it's not working like that we think that it should, come to somebody and feel free to talk about it, but feel free to come with a solution. Because it's close to your heart, so come with a solution. So when I was learning too, and you always are, but one of the things that I was learning too, when we had siblings, 3 siblings that were biracial. And we went to vacation once in Branson, Missouri, which is the Ozarks. Anyway, went to vacation once, and I called him my son because we were going to try to adopt him. Stephen, when we went into this one gas station to get a drink, whatever it was, this other black man started talking to him like, you know, it was like, you know, just street talk, okay? And I felt myself not liking that at all. And so I have to learn too that, you know, whatever I'm used to, whatever I think is right, isn't the same custom, isn't the same culture as someone else has been raised in or as someone else has been taught. So when we're looking at each other, if we see each other doing something that we may not approve of because we've been raised different or something, we have to consider they've been raised different too. And that's not necessarily wrong. You know, down here in Georgia, it's still, and it is most places, anywhere you go. But it's still a good old boy system for the most part. Even though it's changed a lot, I know, and it's been better, it's still a good old boy system. So, and anywhere you go, it's usually who you know, not what you know, isn't it? In a lot of things. But it's what you know too. And actually, it's more important than what you know. Because if you go with this idea of the Spirit, and God is going first before me, and I'm going to put God first in every situation that I have, then you're going to look at things differently. And like I said, if someone comes from a different culture, different background, different whatever, you're going to recognize them still as the Christ and be able to communicate effectively with them. So, that's right. Did I do that?
No. No, it's the same, it's not the same thing. Go back.
Oh, it's can we trust now? That's right. And this will be, it's part of it, so I don't know why I didn't remember that. But anyway, can we trust? You know, after we love somebody, we have to get to the point where we can trust them. Can we trust them? You know, because when we love somebody, it's one thing to be in church and say, yes, I love all people and all that. And it's another thing when you get cut off in traffic, right? Well, that guy didn't go to church, right? So, trusting people, though, you know, Francie does a great thing when that happens. When I'm usually doing this, she's usually saying, well, God bless them so they get safe to where they're going and that they don't hurt anybody on the way. So we have to be able to trust each other, too. Can we trust each other? Can we trust our friends to make the right decisions? Yeah, sure we can. We easily. We know our family pretty well, so we can trust that we know that what they're going to do. And even in that situation, you know, sometimes we have Uncle Bill, I'll call him, or whatever, that's always the guy that causes problems at Thanksgiving.
Don't say that about Bill.
Oh, Bill, I wasn't even thinking about him personally, but anyway,
Yeah.
Uncle Bill, yeah. Anyway, I just pulled out the name. Anyway, you know, we have our own opinions of our family members and what they do. But if we have a negative opinion of them, it's not necessarily going to hurt them, but it can create a situation where we're not allowing ourselves to see the good in them, right? It's very easy to do that. And when we don't allow ourselves to see the Christ, because what we're doing is we're cutting off some part of the Christ in them from our viewpoint, right? If we're not looking at them as they can do anything to help themselves in their life, and then we are cutting off, not necessarily that they're good, but in our mind we're cutting off their good. And by doing that, believe it or not, when we cut off, when we are in our mind are thinking less than somebody and they're good, then we're cutting off our own good. That's where it does affect us, is we are cutting off our own good. Believe it or not. So our home, we got to think good about it. We got to think good about nature. We can't say on nature, you know, and I know I'm not offending anybody. We can't say about nature, you know, we've got global warming and we're all going to die. We're going to die in a flame at some point. We've got to do, if it's in our heart, though, we need to make the changes to stop that. But we have to think positively about it. And I say positive because it's an easy word to remember, but that's not all we have to do. We can't just think, oh, this is going to go, something that's happening that we are responsible or we need to take care of, that we can just think it away. You can't just think it away, but you have to have the positive idea to get it away. Do you follow me? Because you're not going to know how otherwise. Can we trust each other? Even the people that we don't know. We can, man, can we after an election? We can. We really can. We still, I mean, that's one thing, you know, every single, as far as presidential election, every single presidential election, you see people, your friends probably, I know my friends, depending on whatever they're thinking, They always threaten, well, if so-and-so wins, I'm leaving the country. And, we've all heard that, haven't we? And, I don't want either side, either one of, whichever side they're on, I don't want neither one of those friends to leave. And most of the time they don't, but still, the point is that we don't have to think about things, put it so much on us that that's what we're thinking. Okay? Because God loves and trusts you all the time. When does God not love and trust you? When is God in your mind, maybe you have an answer to this. When is God in your mind, you had an idea, something got on your heart, you want to do something, has stopped you, said, no, you're not going to be able to do that. A lot of people, when Moses crossed the sea and the Romans were chasing him, or the Egyptians were chasing him, and they got flooded, a lot of people mark that off to whatever, because they found that there is this low part in the Red Sea that they could have crossed the part, we've proven that. Well, I don't know about you, but that's been a few years back, and I think that the geography has probably changed since then.
Probably.
So I don't want to put myself, I'm willing to believe in a miracle, is what I'm getting to. I'm willing to believe in a miracle. Are you?
Yes.
And a miracle is only something that we don't understand yet as being able to do.
Right.
I know that when Moses had taught the Hebrew people at that time to believe enough that anything like that could happen. And that's how they were able to escape. Now, we can say all these stories in the Bible didn't happen. Well, they didn't happen. If you think that, then they didn't happen just because you didn't see them. And if you're basing your life on believing only things you see, then you are really short-sighted. What about a blind man or a blind woman? Are they lesser than because they can't physically see? Are they lesser than because they can't enjoy sight? I don't think so. I've seen probably the only, I'm trying to think of it, the only one that I can think of right now, a blind man that I knew, and I didn't really know him that well, is he was very successful, very vivacious, and very much enjoying life, but he couldn't see a lip. It wasn't like he was just legally blind. He couldn't see nothing. And so, when we think about that, we have to think about other people and how they're coming from that. If I think that everything I can see is the only thing that's real, and a blind man can see a lot of things but not be able to see them, then something's going on there that I need to investigate in my own ideas of what I'm thinking about life. Because God loves and trusts you. But he loves and trusts your neighbor too. But he loves and trusts you. And that's where it boils down to, is you. If God loves and trusts you, then you have the ability to do and shape things the way you want to. This is from 1 Corinthians 13:1. It says, I speak in the tongues of men and of angels. You've heard this before. But have not love. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. In other words, I know that you know what this means, but I'm going to explain it anyway. If I'm sitting out there, especially in a minister's role, if I'm sitting out there saying, all of this stuff, but I don't have love in my heart when I'm saying it, then it's just noise. That's all it is. It means nothing. Now, that doesn't mean, that's not where I'm coming from today, because I am coming from love. But that doesn't mean that if someone says something and they're not sincere, that you can't get something good out of it. That's the whole funny thing about it, if you think about it. Someone can say all sorts of junk, and you still get something good at it. I saw I don't know why I turned on this series, but I did, a thing about about a black man that was a slave. It was at the end of the Civil War. Anyway, he went through all this stuff, and you think about, and he went not only with it through the white slave owners, but also the white men that were trying to free slaves, and the black men after slavery, because he was working for white men essentially, but that's what was in control at the time. So their different perspectives about him and how he was living his life was very interesting. And it didn't come down to race, it just come down to what people were thinking. What they were thinking life should be like. You know, you live through something like that, and I hope that we never forget those kind of things, like the wars that we've been through, slavery, things like this that we've been through, that we've experienced. And the reason I don't want people to forget them is because I don't want to experience them again. We don't have to, but we can if we get stuck in our way, and that's the only way. Our way is the only way, because it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. God loves you and everybody along with you. And this is the deal. Love doesn't have any preconditions. No matter what you've done, no matter what your Uncle Bill has done, you know, you can, today's a new day. Today's a new, it's almost 12 o'clock. Today's a new 12 o'clock on a Sunday. Today is a new moment. No matter what we've done, no matter what has happened to other people in our lives, it can change in an instant. I don't know about you, but I'm counting on that for some people. Not for them to change necessarily, but for me to change my attitude so I don't stop myself from growing, but also to see them in a good place. You know, and when I say that, I'm thinking mainly of family members. You know, I want to see my family, the people I love, whoever that can be, family members, can be friends, can be anybody. I want to see people I love succeed in life, whatever that looks like to them. So that's why we have to consider where we're coming from when we're talking about other people and when we're talking to other people. Because this thing called the internet, we can be pretty hateful sometimes. Pretty hateful. And I don't know, the thing is, you know, sometimes, and Francie reads some of my emails sometimes, and she said, I don't think that came across the way you wanted it to. And it's so easy to do, isn't it? I mean, you can, especially at the first step, in business, you know, we had that all the time. Somebody shooting an email to somebody and then them sitting there thinking, you know, that they're supposed to, that they were getting chewed out for something, and then they weren't. That's not what they were saying, but that's the way it came across. And it's not only that you maybe don't use English writing correctly, because I'm not an English major or anything, but it's just the perception that where somebody is when they receive it, where somebody is when they write it. I can get busy in things, and real busy in things, and get caught up and shoot something to somebody as far as an email or something real fast because I'm into it, you know, and then it sounds really curt when I read it later. It's not that I meant that, it's that I wanted to, you know, I was just in a zone for myself, and I wasn't thinking about making sure it sounded right. So it's easy to do, but we have to be careful in what we're doing. We can have all sorts of things, but love has no preconditions. Love can be anything, anywhere, at any time. And you know, we sometimes though too, and I don't want to do that, I want to tell you this because this is what I heard this week too, is there's this semi-new thing, it's not that new. Some people say talking about spiritual bypass, meaning that, you know, and that's the reason I wanted to talk about this today, is because some people think that, especially us in Unity, not us, people outside of Unity try to think that Unity just talks through things and spiritually bypasses them, you know, kind of negates people's feelings, and that's could be nothing further than the truth, I don't think, because we recognize everybody what they're going through and want to assist them to get through to where they want to be, wherever that is from. So love is always there, but we don't want to say something negative and say, or something rude and say, well, it came from love. Well, phrase it better than if it came from love, right? You know what I mean? I mean, you can do some things different. Because we're all trying to get through whatever together. I think I really loved this one guy that came after us in seminary. It's interesting how your life, I hope you get to experience this, I'm sure most of you have, how your life impacts others without you even knowing it. And this guy came to seminary, and he was in Wichita, and I really didn't even know he was in Wichita, which was our home church at the time. But I didn't even remember he was in Wichita. And so anyway, he still says, he says everybody's going, and he repeats it from some philosopher, I don't remember who. Might have been Gandhi, I don't know, but anyway, he says everybody's going through their own stuff, if you will. Be cognizant of the fact that they're going through their own stuff. Because we all have things that we make bigger than they actually are. We really do. And so I want you to be able to love each other without, love should be unabashed, should be freely giving. But we get caught up with everything that we have. I think after the results of this last week, I think if nothing else, we feel like, whichever side you're on, I hope you feel like a relief. A little bit of a relief. No matter what side you're on, because it isn't about winning or losing. It's about, this is over finally. Tired of this negative stuff coming on the television or whenever, and it not happening, us not being over, but we're over. Pure love and pure joy expressed as laughter have commonality, and that's true. Because I've said before, and joy, laughter comes from joy, that when you're laughing, when you're physically laughing, you are 100% in joy and love. You're 100%. You can't be thinking about your problems with the negative, whether I win, lose this, whether who thinks whatever. You can't be thinking about that when you're laughing. It's a physical impossibility. And it's amazing when we think about that, at least when I think about that. It's amazing to think that we can do something physically and get away from anything, any type of worry we have. Francie, at first I don't know if you like him or not, but now she likes him. I love Jim Gaffigan. I don't know if you do or not.
I love
He's a
Jim
comedian.
Gaffigan, yes.
And he is so funny. And he's kind of like, he's funnier than Bob Newhart or somebody else that was kind of like that. They call him dry humor or whatever, you know. But and I like the humor about life. Because I hope that all of us can laugh at ourselves. And sometimes we get to the point where we can't even laugh about ourselves anymore. And that's pretty sad when we can't laugh about ourselves. Because it's kind of funny sometimes. If we look back at times in our life when we had put a lot of pressure on ourselves about different things, and we can look back and say, you know, I didn't have to put that pressure on myself at all. It turned out the way it was going to turn out.
That's true.
I did not have to put that pressure on myself. You know, my uncle, which was the Uncle Bill of the family, his name was Gary. I love him, but he's now been passed for a long time. But I probably told you before that he was messing up on a lot of stuff. Let me say that. But he he worked at Boeing for a little bit, the airplane manufacturer, and he had a college degree. So back then he could get in there. The college degree really got you in the door real fast. But anyway, he got in there and he wasn't doing his job. And so his boss brought him in, and it's funny how I look at this now, but anyway, his boss brought him in and told him, listen, you got to do your job. You're not doing your job right. You're going to have to do your job better. And Gary laughed and said, you know, he was really, it came across as if he was being very disrespectful and not listening to him. And I could see that happening in my career, especially in my early business career. I could see me being that boss saying, oh, I'm going to get you out of here. But, you know, in retrospect, which I felt that way for a long time, that it was very disrespectful. And it really kind of was, but he should have been tactful more about it. But in retrospect now, I can see how if we could all do that, and the guy not take offense to it, and say, you know, let's lighten the load. Listen to Jim Gaffigan or your favorite jokester for a little bit. Release, laugh, and see what you feel like after that. Because after we laugh, we're not going to be hard-nosed again right after the laugh, right? We've kind of loosened up. The laugh has loosened us up. And that's because that we're feeling that joy that we have within us all the time. One of the gifts that we have from God. And when we have that, because when we're getting angry, when we're getting mad at other people, that is not a gift from God. That is something that we've learned to do because we're not getting our way. It's kind of like the baby crying when they're not getting fed. They need something. Well, getting mad and angry about something that happens in your life, I mean, we can do it. I still do it. Sure I do. But we have to be able to learn how to turn that into something use that energy in some other form in a better way. Go to the laughter and find out. I would have never been ordained, let me put it that way, become a minister, I was going to say. But I never would have been able to pass the LNOs if a fellow minister would have told me this, and I've told you this before, I think. In one of my LNOs, I had failed again, and fail is relative, but anyway, it's other people's opinion of you. You didn't do good. And so when that happened, for whatever time it was, the third time or something, we were back in the review, and he said, I can see your anger right now. And this one I was getting pretty good at. I was already done it a few times, so I was getting pretty good about, I felt like hiding my anger. And he said, you're pretty angry about this, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. God, I don't know why I blurted that out, because, sometimes when you're in there and you're mad, you kind of, so they just give me the news that, you didn't pass, you're still on concern again. And so he said, you're mad about this, aren't you? And I said, yes, I am. Probably shouldn't have done that, but it worked out the best that I did. Because he said, use that energy of anger to turn it around to what we're looking for. And I said, I do have a lot of energy in this anger. I did. Boy, I used to have a big temper. I still do, I suppose. And that's a lot of energy, let me tell you, a lot of energy. But that's what I did. I used that energy into a positive force. And the next LNO I went into, which is licensing and ordination, next LNO I went into, it wasn't that I didn't care whether I passed or not, but I really didn't care if I passed or not. You know what I'm saying? I didn't put as much weight on my shoulders that, okay, I'm the son of a minister, I've been in unity all my life, I have to become a minister. I just said, whatever happens is going to happen. You guys are going to judge me however you want to judge me, and that's going to happen. And so we can shift whatever energy we have that isn't working for us in our life into something that we can go to prayer about and think, God, I can use this in this way. Thank you. And then know the better way to do. So all I ask you today is understand that express love has no boundaries. We can express our love and have no boundaries with it. We don't have to put stipulations on the love that we give. Uncle Bill doesn't have to act right for me to love him. Right? As spiritual beings, we have no boundaries. And that's the truth. We understand that all the time when we're in church and we think about, okay, then, we are in this. Oh, I saw a good movie too. I'm going to tell you that. Not during this service. About the fourth dimension. Anyway, if we think about our spiritual life, our spiritual self, we know that we have no boundaries, right? That's fairly easy to think about, isn't it? We have no boundaries. Whatever you think about when you think about your own spirit, what do you think about? An angel or just a gaseous thing going around, moving around, whatever, a ghost type deal, whatever you're thinking about when you think about spirit. You think about the freedom that it has, right? But we have that freedom now. Sure, it's contained a little bit in the body, but it's not contained that much in the body. So we have to think about how we have no bridles on us. We don't have any type of chains on us that will prevent us from doing God's work here. And God's work is in here, but it can be expressed out here.
Yes.
So, if we live our life as love and joy, and if we live our life as love, then we can enjoy the joy that it brings. Enjoy the joy. Yeah, I said that. Enjoy the joy that it brings. All right, God bless you today.